Yeah, the Christmas, Easter only crowd. Welcome. Very I was like, wow, maybe I should have been more bold. I don't know. But I was like, I ain't that brave yet. No way. Not going there. But the truth is, there are a lot of people that may only come for Easter. They may only come for special occasions. Be praying about those. There's a lost flock out there that Jesus wants to reach. Amen? Amen. Amen. So somebody said, well, how do we do that? It's simple. Look at someone around you. In your case, Becky, look at me, I guess. Look at somebody around you and say, because you the goat. You the goat, right? Remember we talked? Becky said, I ain't calling you goat. You didn't get bigger than me. We talked about this a little bit last week, but we're the goat. The goats have left the building, all right? So here's the thing. There is a phrase, and it is a thing now. The teenagers of our church will tell you that to be the GOAT is a compliment. It's a good thing. It literally stands for the greatest of all time. And so the series we're going to do, and it really is perfect timing right after Easter, because we believe Jesus is risen. We believe that He wants to do great things. But all that Jesus did, all that was taught, all of the Old Testament, all of the laws, all of the stuff that we've heard about or that we preach about or talk about or read about, what does it all come down to? Like really, if you took everything, what would it all come down to? And so our theme scripture for this series, we're going to look at this each week, is Matthew chapter 22, verses 34 and 38 through 38. Check it out. It says this. Hearing that Jesus had silenced the Sadducees, the Pharisees got together. All right. Let me tell you what's not good. Like after today, if like a group of y'all are like, hey, let's get together and talk about Nate, talk about the church, let's talk about some things. That's usually not good. It's usually not real positive. Well, the Pharisees did this constantly. The Pharisees gathered them up. They got together and they're like, hey, here's what we're going to do. And so one of them, an expert in the law, tested him, being Jesus, with this question. Teacher, what is the greatest commandment in the law? Now, I thought it'd be kind of cool to have a good debate right now, all right? How many of you are like rock and roll fans in the house? Anybody? All right, got a few. All right, I want y'all to debate with me right now and argue a case. Who is the greatest rock band of all time? Who would you say?
Def Leppard.
Def Leppard. Anybody disagree? Kiss. There you go. Anybody else?
Rage Against the Machine.
Rage Against the Machine, Rolling Stones. All right. So we could debate that all day long, right? We could talk about that. How about any sports fans? Who's the greatest college football player of all time? Ryan Boone. Tosh Boyd.
Herschel Walker.
Who would you say?
Herschel Walker.
Herschel Walker. Anybody? We could debate, right? This guy, that lady, this person. What about the best? Like any of you movie fans? One of my brothers, it's actually not the one that makes movies, it's the other guy. He loves movies. He loves them all the time. And one time I asked him, I said, Matt, what's your favorite movie? And he just looked at me like all dramatic, like, how dare you ask that? There's no way I can pick one, right? So like if you like love movie, so the Pharisees here, they're like, we're going to get Jesus with all the laws, with all the stuff of the Old Testament, all that He teaches, we're going to get Him. We're going to force Him to come up with one of the greatest, what is the greatest commandment. And just like they always do, they think they're going to catch Him. They think it's going to, turn into this moment of getting Him or catching Him in a lie or something like that. And Jesus is on it, man. This is what He says. They say, Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law? Verse 37, Jesus replied, not even skipping a beat, love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the first and greatest commandment. Are you, so excited to serve a simple God that breaks it down? Like, yes, He's complex. There's things about Him we can never understand. But when it comes down to His instructions for us, it's rarely rocket science. It's rarely super, super confusing. Praise the Lord. I'd be in a lot of trouble. So here's the thing. I'm that guy that had a hard time going to class. I'm that guy that wasn't real book smart all the time. My mom says I was. I just didn't apply myself. Whatever. But I can prove this to you, man. You guys be praying for Hope and I. Man, we are so excited to have a trustee meeting today. Anybody else? Amen. All right. Man, I'm in church now. Okay. No, I'm just kidding. But Hope and I, be praying for us. We're about to do a 3-part trip. We're going to have our trustee meeting, and we are hitting the road. She is I think, I don't even know, are you making the kids walk to the grandparents' house because we just leave them so fast? I don't even know. But we dropped the kids off. We were doing a 3-part trip. Our anniversary is coming up next month, 3 years. Awesome. And so we're going to spend 2 nights in Georgia. Somebody say Georgia. Georgia's going to be on my mind. It's going to be awesome. We're going to spend 2 nights in Georgia for our anniversary trip. Some of you are thinking that Georgia's on your mind while you're on a trip with your wife, so I'm wrong. I'm just kidding. We're going to spend 2 nights in Georgia. Can y'all tell I've been really sick and I haven't eaten in like 3 days? And I'm kind of like all over the place right now. So we're going to spend 2 nights. Oh, I'm so nervous what I'm about to say. Aren't you? No? You good? All right.
Now I am. It better be something good.
It's going to be good. We're going to spend 2 nights in Georgia for our anniversary trip. Then on Wednesday, this is the part that made me think of this, I'm going to Warner, the college I graduated from, and I have a chance on Wednesday to go to different classes and speak to the ministry students. And I'm like kind of puffed up about that. I'm like, wow, that's so cool. I'm excited. You know, I get to go back to my alma mater. Haven't been there in like 10 years, see the campus, and they've actually invited me to come speak to these students. And we're going to talk about internships and church placement. We're going to try to get some fresh blood up in the Carolinas and good stuff. And a pastor friend of mine, he brought me down immediately. He goes, so Nate, they're having you come in and speak to the classes about ministry and stuff? I said, yeah. He goes, well, obviously they don't check attendance records on who they invite to speak. Okay, all right, I deserve that. But yes, and only the way God can move. I go from skipping classes to speaking some classes, which is going to be really cool. And then y'all be praying and hope, what is Matt and Emily's new baby's name going to be?
They don't have anything yet, but she's on her way. Did you see that?
No.
She's on her way.
Whoa, my sister-in-law's having a baby, like right on my phone, growing up. I didn't know what was going on. Okay, well, good news. My brother and his wife are having a baby, sounds like, as we speak. And we're going to spend the tail end of our trip Thursday and Friday in Raleigh to see the new baby who is on the way, which is really cool. So we're going to celebrate anniversary. We're going to go speak at a college, and we're going to go see family that's being born as we speak. So it's going to be an awesome week. Be praying for us. But while we are on this trip, while I was thinking about this planning this week and just the cool stuff that's going to happen and what God's going to do, I thought, man, I want it to be a great week. I want it to be a great trip. You know, typical Nate, we're piling like 3 different things into 1 week, which is crazy. All this stuff and all these things. But how can we make it a little bit better? I'm constantly trying to think, how can we make it a little bit better? Well, today, as we look at this commandment that God is telling us, the greatest commandment is to love Him, I want to give us a challenge. If I were to poll the entire church, even everybody here right now, if I were to poll the entire county, if I simply asked you, do you love God, what would your answer be?
Yes.
Yeah, okay? Right, of course. Here's the thing. Can you challenge yourself to say, am I able to love God a little bit more? Am I able to go a little bit deeper? Am I able to go a little bit further in my love for God? Because we would all say, yes, we love God. But then as we break that down, knowing that's the greatest commandment, we have to find ourselves asking ourselves the question, well, can I love Him more? Do I love Him as much as I possibly can? Because sometimes the answer to that is, wow, there's other areas I could love Him more. There's other things I could do different, and maybe that's what He's calling me to do. As Meg shared earlier, the reason why this concept of how much we love God, the reason why this is hugely important, the reason why this is we must address this and must challenge ourselves to love God even more than we do is because literally, everybody say literally. Literally everything in life, everything you go through, everything you experience, every moment you breathe, every single thing in life hinges and hangs on the fact, depends on how much you love God. That's a lot of pressure, right? So I think it's okay to address that. Here's the thing. Our life is full of things that we do and full of places that we go, full of things maybe we say, whatever that. Maybe there's places that we would go or things that we do that we would only ever do because of what? Because we love somebody. How many people in here, if you don't have kids in the home right now, or if you've never had kids, or if you don't have grandkids yet, that kind of thing, how many non-children, if you have a night out with no kids, maybe even if you do, right? How many of you have ever looked at someone, your friends or whatever, and said, man, I'm really craving a good pizza? Any of you ever been there? Oh, listen, man, go down Highway 9, you got 95 options now. Go look at every kind of pizza you want, right? Well, how many of you have ever said, without any children involved, how many of you ever looked at someone and said, I want a really good pizza, let's go to Chuck E. Cheese? Anybody? No? Nobody? Man, I just want a great meal. Honey, we have date night. Let's go to Chuck E. Cheese. Not a chance. Why would you ever actually go to Chuck E. Cheese? Deadly Harris. It's decent pizza.
Unlimited salad bar.
The salad bar's good, but so you would choose that over Venus pie? No, look, okay, there we go. Let's be real. Let's be real. We're not here to call anybody out, but Debbie, you're crazy. No, here's the thing. You would not do that. Well, why would you ever go? Because of a child that you what? Love. Man, if Grace didn't love that place, I would never be there. That was my first job. I did my time, and I would never go back, okay? But because of someone you love. Think about a ball field, all right? I know there's some die-hard sports fans in here, but unless you absolutely love t-ball or baseball, for just the casual fans, would you ever spend hours watching 3, 4, or 5-year-olds run around not knowing what they do for hours and hours of your week? Why would you do that? Because you love them. All right.
Soccer
Is
shorts.
Kara here? She's in nursery.
Yes, you're clear.
Would you spend hours and hours and hours at these dance competitions? The Honesty Award goes to. There's no, okay, today is totally random. I apologize. Y'all come back, okay? One of the worst moments of my life. I was new in youth ministry. I'm just being real, all right? Well, I heard Nathan. That's not good. I want Georgia to be good, so I'm going to keep on going. All right, there we go. Just kidding. All right, I got to tell you that. So I had this mom, this youth mom, and she said, oh, dance competition, please come to my daughter's dance. And I'm like, yeah, I'll be, y'all know I like to come to different things. I said, I will be there. It was my first dance competition of my life. I'm sitting there 2.5 hours late. Girl hadn't even danced yet. And my eyes are bloodshot red. I'm just like, what is happening right now? And finally, I looked on the program, and I finally texted the mom. I said, so just curious, what's your daughter's dance group's name? Just out of curiosity. And she told me, so I looked down on the thing. I'm 3 hours. 3 hours into this thing. I haven't even seen her dance yet. And I see her as soon as she dances. I'm like, bam, gone, out of there. And the mom texted me, it was so sweet. She texted me, said, I saw that you left abruptly. Were you offended by my daughter's dance? I said, offended? I've been sitting here for 3 freaking hours. No, I'm just kidding. I was like, no, I wasn't offended. I just, next time, let a brother know a time scale here. What's going on? If I did not love that student, I would not have been there. And you didn't know. We are not going to go places we don't want to go. We're not going to do things we don't want to do. We're not going to say things we don't want to say unless it's for someone we love. Amen? Amen. 1 John 4:7 says this, dear friends, let us love one another. For love, this is a lot of pressure, for love comes from God. Everyone who loves has been born of God and knows God. Here's where it gets serious. Whoever does not love does not know God. So what's that tell us? It tells us that God is love. This is how God showed his love among us. He sent his one and only Son into the world that we might live through him. That is insanity to think that. Man, you could be a good person. You could like people. You could have a good disposition. We've been talking a lot about the heart and things like that. But if you have accepted Christ, what that tells me is there's no way to say I love God and not have a heart for lost people. Right? There's no way to say I love God and not love the church and want to be a part of what God is doing. There's no way I can say I love God and not commit my entire life to him, because basically what this is saying is God is love. So without God, there is no love. So with him is how we can experience the true love that only God can bring. We must be very purposeful to love God more than everyone else and everything else, including, guess who? Yourself. Man, that's hard sometimes, man. I naturally am going to kind of think about what I want to do, or what I like, or what I want to, where I want to go, whatever. Maybe it's Chuck E. Cheese, maybe not. But wherever it might be, you're going to naturally have a tendency to go that way. Well, here's what God is saying. He's saying, no, I'm saying you must love me above everyone and everything else. Even in our relationship series in February, we said, man, put your spouse, if you're married, above everything else but what? But God. But God. God needs to be number one above everything. So here's the thing. Loving God must be first, which we'd all agree to that, right? Amen. Love God first. But here's a challenge today to love God a little more, is to do this. There should not even be a second place in sight. Think about that. Our love for God should be so great that it's like, God, I love you so much. If you were to ask us, well, what do you love second? Man, I don't even know. My love for you is so great, I don't even know. If you're married, I hate picking on Al and Debbie, but let's pick on Al and Debbie, all right? Ashley pays me $10 a week to pick on them. If Debbie comes to Al and they're sitting there at a romantic candlelight Chuck E. Cheese dinner, and Debbie looks at Al and says, Al, do you love me? What's Al going to say? Of course I do. Al, am I number one love? Of course. Is there a second? Well, yeah, there's a second. How's that going to turn out? Not good, right? If you're dating someone or married, it's, oh yeah, you're number one, but there is a second place. Right here, close. Not smart, not good, it should not be. Well, God's the same way. God's like, hold on, there should not even be a second. You should love me so much. Your love for me, when it comes to that type of love that only comes from me, should be the greatest love in your life. If everything in life hinges upon that, if everything in life hangs upon that love, then everything else is going to line up when we have that love in the right context. Everybody say Laodicea. There's a church called Laodicea in Revelation that's going to explain to us what God is talking about. Revelation 3:15 through 17 say this, I know your deeds, he's talking to the church, that you are neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. Any of you ever had like lukewarm Starbucks or lukewarm? I'm going to admit something, Kelly, close your ears. I apologize, I do not want you to know this, but Kelly is my supplier. Everyone knows that, right? My Starbucks supplier, man. Y'all get your minds out of the gutter. She is my supplier of Starbucks. Well, last Sunday it was so insane and so crazy, right? It was just a crazy day, crazy week, that I only got like 3 sips into my Starbucks before both services. So by the time I got to, and I will not waste food or drink. You can ask Kobe. Hello. Will not waste food or drink. I refuse to. And I'm driving home, and Meg, I think it was, provided this awesome muffin. I didn't have a chance to eat it. I said, I'm not wasting this muffin, and I'm not wasting this Starbucks. And so about 3 hours after it had been purchased, I chugged about that much of cold Starbucks. Right? I did it.
I'm proud of you.
As I'm reading that scripture, I thought, that's why God doesn't want lukewarm, because it's disgusting. And it's terrible, but I still drank it, all right? I want you to know that. Here's the thing. You ever, again, let's use relationships. You ever been in a relationship and you said, hey, how much do you love me? I'm kind of hot, kind of cold. Sometimes you're great, sometimes you're not. You know what? Hey, life happens, but if that's the way we see love, if God's the same way, he says, no, I don't want that. I don't want you neither cold nor hot. I wish you were either one or the other. Now that's scary, because what God's saying is, I'd rather you be cold and not about me at all than kind of about me sometimes and kind of not. So because you are lukewarm, neither hot nor cold, I am about to spit you out of my mouth. You say, and here's the thing, he sets it up to say, you are lukewarm. This church was probably on fire at one point, or probably the people of the church were on fire, and then all of a sudden they became lukewarm. Verse 17 gives us a picture of what caused them to go from hot to neither hot nor cold and lukewarm. He says this, you say, I am rich, I have acquired wealth and do not need a thing. But you do not realize that you are wretched, pitiful, poor, blind, and naked. Man, so do you ever wish Jesus would just God would keep it real? You want to be honest with us? This is what he's doing here. He's saying, wow, now that you've got some things going on for you, now that you've got some things together where you don't feel like you need me anymore, you have turned into a lukewarm Christian. And I'm saying I'd rather you be completely against me than not completely for me. I never, ever, I pray every day, in my quiet time, I pray every day, say, God, I don't ever want to feel like I don't need you anymore. That is a scary, scary place to be. Some of you have been through times in your life where you needed God to get you up out of bed. Some of you have been through times in your life where when you're going through the deepest of valley, you're spending more time with God than ever before. You're relying on God for everything, and that's an awesome, awesome thing. It does not matter if things are going great or if they're going terrible. We must acknowledge our need for God. Like, in order to love Him more than we already do, we must acknowledge we need God for everything in every moment of every day. But in order to do this, to love God that much, we got to understand of who God is and how much He loves us. And so 1 John 4:10-12 is going to help us with that. It says this: "This is love, not that we love God, but that He loved us and sent His Son as an atoning sacrifice for our sins. Dear friends, since God so loved us, we also ought to love one another. No one has ever seen God, but if we love one another, God lives in us, and His love is made complete in each and every one of us." Think about that. If you ever think, man, there's no way I can be a good person to people that I don't like. There's no way I can ever be this person to that person because of what they've done. Well, God is saying, hey, if you commit your entire life to me, if you give me everything, you cannot help but love those that are around you, even if they've done you wrong, even if they don't look like you, smell like you, whatever. If you are in my family, you cannot help but love. So here's the thing, and this part's really hard. We're going to kind of end on a really tough note, but in order to completely grasp this love that God wants us to have for Him, in order for us to completely say, God, I'm going to love you, number one commandment, the greatest commandment of all time, to love you with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with everything in me, I'm going to love you, we have to grasp how much He loves us. And that's really hard to do because sometimes we don't love ourselves. And sometimes we've done things that have broken God's heart and we know that are not pleasing to God. Any of you, we don't have to raise hands, and we're kind of comfortable today, but we don't have to raise hands, but any of you ever sinned and broke God's heart? Any of you ever been with someone and done things you shouldn't do? Any of you ever asked God to deliver you from something and then turn your back on Him right away? Any of you ever given in to substances or things that are of this world that are not pleasing to God? So all of us have been there, done that in some way, shape, or form. And what God is saying is, even though you've done those things, even though you may feel like you have completely run away from me, my love for you is so great. I'm going to start singing that song if I'm not careful. But He will leave the 99. His reckless love is insane and crazy for us that it will come after us no matter where we've been and what we've done. But here's the thing. In order to grasp that, in order to completely rely on that love for God that He has for us, you have to make it so real in your life that it can't be just because I'm telling you to. It can't be just because you feel like you should. How many of you know this? If you are living and breathing today, if you're just doing something because you're told to, it's really probably not going to last, right? You're going to be shocked at this fact about Nate. But when I was growing up, I hated cleaning my room. Can you believe that? What?
No way.
My house is immaculate, man. You'd be shocked. I hated cleaning my room. Guess why? The only reason I ever cleaned my room, guess why? Because I was told to. If I never woke up on Saturday like, man, I desire to clean this bed. Not once. Not once. Isn't that crazy? But because I was told to, so guess what? My room didn't stay very clean. Whenever I was told to, I would clean it. But that was about it. Band, you guys come on up. We're going to finish on this thought. Psalm 27, verse 4 gives us a picture of what, if I could wrap this whole greatest commandment up, if I could wrap this whole thing up on saying, God, I want to love you more, this is what it wraps up to. And David says this, and these are very honest words from David, and this is what he says. He says, one thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek Him in His temple. What David is saying is that all of life hinges on how much I love you, so I want to be in your presence. I want to be in your house. I want to be in you every single moment of every single day, because that's how much you love me, and that's how much I love you. And what this leads us to is when we grasp this love that God has for us, and we start to love Him more and more than we even already do, then all of a sudden we can be the light and into a dark place. And I really encourage you to come back next week, because we're going to take step 2 on this, and we're going to focus on Matthew 22, verses 34, 39, and 40 tonight. It says this, and the second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law of the prophets hang on these 2 commandments. Love God and love each other, which is much easier said than done. So if everything in life hangs on the fact and on the part of how much we love God, if we're to love Him that much so that we can love each other, then we've got to do this together. We've got to worship together. We've got to talk together. We've got to pray together. And we got to be willing to say, God, because of your love for me, a love that I couldn't even grasp until you came into my heart, I love you that much. And I want to go out and show that love to others and to show people what an enduring love, that's what we're going to talk about next week. How does a love last? An enduring love that's way more than based on feelings, way more than based on moments and emotions, but an enduring love that can never be shaken, that I believe this world needs to see. Amen? Amen. So let me say a prayer. I just kind of want to end my part with a prayer, and then we'll sing this song. But I just want to pray that each and every single one of us will commit to loving God more. Even though you may not feel like it, even though you may be going through something right now that gives you 100 reasons not to, even though you may feel like you've been far away from that love for a long time, wherever you're at, I just want us to challenge to say, God, I'm going to love you more today. I'm going to not do it because I feel like I should. I'm going to do it because of how much you love me. Father God, I just lift this moment up to you today. I thank you so much for this group, man. I thank you for each and every person that's here that had 100 reasons not to come today, God, with spring break and craziness and all that's going on. But God, you're calling this group that's in this room right now to love you as much as we possibly can. God, you're calling this group in this room right now to reach out in ways we've never reached out before. And God, you're putting this on my heart right now. You're calling somebody in this room to start loving themselves because of how much you love them. And God, I pray that we would lift each other up in that we would be here for each other. And God, as we're going to talk about next week, man, even when our emotions are a certain way, or even when we don't feel like being your light, God, that love for you would endure through all things, so that we can spread the light that you called us to spread, so that we can love you more and more each and every day. It's in the name I pray. Amen.
We're going to do this song with Emmanuel, and it's probably been, 9 or 10 or even maybe a year since we've done it. But you know, sometimes when you're listening to a song and you just love everything about it, and you learn it, you know, when you're singing along in the car, and then one day you really start focusing on the words, and you hear this line, and it just hits you, and you're just like, oh my gosh, I understand everything about this song now. And you know, then you just start thinking about life, and just everything makes sense. And a few weeks ago that happened to me with this song. I was listening to it in the car, and it's always been a favorite that I listen to, but there's a line in it before the chorus, and it says, behold, behold the one, our love has come. And you know, it's such a significant line because it refers to Jesus and God as our love. And I just think that's such a beautiful description of Him and a definition of Him, because He is love. He's where love started and ended and is infinite for the rest of our lives and in heaven. And it just really, really touched me. And this is technically a Easter song, but it's okay to celebrate Easter every single day of your life and every Sunday of your life if you want to, you know, because it's so important to remember His sacrifice for us and His love for us. So if you guys will stand with us and just take a moment to worship with us and really think about God's love, His infinite love, and His sacrifices for us.
Before we set the edge of